So hello, good morning, good evening, good night, whatever time you're viewing. Welcome to another RiderCamTV video. And today I thought I'd follow on from the sessions that we've had about how to become a tutor. And I thought to myself, it's quite a kind of an oppressive thing to join an organisation with some of the preconceived ideas that people naturally have about what the group's about, what happens, and specifically, you know, I guess it's kind of, I'm thinking back to when I first started, it's quite a nerve-wracking thing to be followed by a tutor. Now, one thing that Chris and Mark always try and tell us is that people will look up to us with their riding. And you kind of forget that because I'm no better rider than anybody else. I like to try and improve every time I'm out on the bike. But I thought what I'd do today is talk about what we do on a typical session as a tutor with an associate. So I've got Chris in front, who's happy to be on film, and he is an associate, and this is our fourth session. And basically, when we start, it's all on the first session, it's all about getting to know you. So you would have had a phone call, you probably would have had your books sent to you, your roadcraft book, by the RoSPA group, and then invited to a session. Your tutor, i.e. me, would have got hold of you to speak to you about what to expect, what to bring with you, and then on the first day that you come and you arrive, we talk about what we're going to be doing, talk about your bike, your experience on the bike, what you want to get out of being an advanced rider, what your motivation is. And then on the first session, it's about checking driving license. We don't write it down anywhere, but we need to make sure that you've got a valid driving license and that you're insured and you're taxed and road legal. And then we just talk around your bike, make sure that you've done the checks that you need to with your lights, and i.e. powders check, and not forgetting the why, which is about you and whether you've got enough time to ride, whether you're in the right headspace, that sort of stuff. And a lot of that conversation probably takes about 20-30 minutes, and there's an ulterior motive to that conversation, and that conversation is all about relaxing someone, because it's very easy for me and other people that do this on a day-to-day basis to forget that when you're doing something new and you're meeting someone new, that it can become quite a daunting thing for some, because we get lots of different riders. We get riders that are new to riding, we get riders that are returning to riding, riders that are very confident, riders that equally are lacking some confidence. So it's all about relaxing people, because we're not here to judge and have a go and say this is wrong, that's wrong. Although what we are here to do is work on a journey of improving riding and getting people to the standard where they can pass an advanced riding test, and therefore be a lot safer on the road and hopefully enjoy their ride. And I know that when the light bulb comes on and they get the system in the right place and they're moving and around the road and they're getting the system just right, that the ride starts to improve immensely, not only in how the ride goes but also in how they enjoy the ride. And that's certainly what I've got from it, and that's what I'd like to impart to other people. So the first session, after that 20-30 minutes chat about your bike and, you know, getting to the point where you're relaxed and you're ready and getting to know you, what we like to do is we like to get you to ride as you normally would ride. So the reason for that is so that we can follow you on a short route, and many of the tutors have got their own little routes that they'll do, and it's usually about 15-20 minutes where you're being followed by your tutor. And what we say to the associate is, on the first session, we just want to get an idea of your riding style, where you are with the system, how you ride, so that we get a baseline in our heads, both of us, both that associate as well as the tutor, so that we can start working on things that we need to work on to get people up to the standard to pass the test. So once we've done that, we'll go back to usually the starting point. So if you know Truro or Cornwall, I like to, for my associates, take them through Truro, because Truro is quite a busy place. There's lots of hazards everywhere, and I can look at how people are negotiating the hazards, how they're riding to the speed limits, how they're reading the road. And then what I'll do is we'll talk about it, and then if there's time, which there usually is on the first session, I will then take people on the same route where they'll follow me. So that's a bit of an, what do we call it? It's a demonstration ride. Now the one thing about a demonstration ride is it isn't about look at me, look at how great my riding is, look at how poor your riding is, because that's not what it's about. What it's about is to say, you know, you've ridden around now, and we've identified that perhaps on some of the corners you're not in the right place, some of the hazards have popped out and surprised you where you could have seen them. So follow me and we'll go round the same route so that you've got an idea of how I negotiate it, and hopefully, and what I usually do with the associates is give them some pointers of what to watch. So I'd say, look at my head moving, look how regular I move my head, and how regularly I am doing my checks, where my positioning is, how I'm looking ahead and how that's transposing on the ride, because I am anticipating what's happening ahead. So if there's a red light, I'm slowing down potentially, because by the time I get there I haven't got to stop if I get it right, and then we'll come back and talk about it. And usually it's really, really good, and it's, you know, a lot of people learn in different ways. So you've got people that learn by hearing, people that learn by seeing, and also people that learn by doing. And if there's any teachers out there, you'll know that there's a massive thing about learning and making sure that the learning style is right for the rider or for the learner. And that very often involves all of those three things mixed together, so that rider or that learner can really start to see what's happening. So it's not just about talking and saying, well, you could have negotiated that bend better, this is where you didn't put the system in place, this is where you were in the wrong position. It's about showing them as well as ultimately going back to the book to compound the learning that you're putting into place, all of that sort of good stuff. So there are some things that we do on a ride, and every ride that we do, because RoSPA doesn't take any responsibility for the way that we ride. Our ride is our own, so we have to point that out to the learner or to the associate. And we have several things just in case things go wrong. So if we get split up, find somewhere really safe to stop. Wait for the tutor to catch up, and then head off again. If anything happens with the bike, say you forgot to do your head strap up before, or your helmet strap up before you've gone, if you need to stop, just stop. Stop somewhere safe. It's better to be safe than sorry, and that's the whole point of RoSPA. It's about prevention of accidents. So we have a system whereby if the tutor is getting a little bit too close and the associate feels a little bit intimidated by it, they can wave you back. You know, our skin is quite thick. We've had all sorts of hand gestures and motions to tell us that we're too close and to move back. So we would just politely just move back a little bit, because it's not about oppression. It's not about telling people that they are, you know, about pressurising them into doing something. It's about working with that associate through their journey of learning. As of course any tutor would, worth their weight in gold, I think, would say that it's all about learning for themselves as well, because I learn every single time I take somebody out. So on top of that, we always put our thumbs up before we move off, and that's to make sure that everybody on the ride is ready to go. We've all been at rides, group rides with friends, or group rides that have been organised where everybody gets going, and they've forgotten that somebody's still putting their gloves on. So already the pressure is on for that person to catch up and things start going wrong. So make sure everybody's ready before we move off. And that's about it really. I'm probably forgetting some things because, you know, we all forget some things, but we have a proper like checklist that we go through before we start our ride, every ride. And also, you know, three or four sessions in, we start looking at the powders check. So with RoSPA, the examiner likes to go through and likes to hear you do some, if not all, of your powders checks to make sure that as an advanced rider, it's not just about thinking about things on the road and how you react to stuff, it's also about how your bike behaves, how it's maintained, is there any damage, what's the water like, how do you put petrol in, have you got enough fuel for the journey, all that sort of jazz. And I think we've done a video on powders at some point, so check it out on our channel. So we are on session 3. So what we started with today was to Chris went through very well actually his first powders check and talking about his powders check in preparation for when we think he's ready to be put in for the test. And I say when we think because the learning journey is all about the two of us. It's all about what Chris thinks about how his ride, how I think from observing him, how we've got on together. It's a two-way street, and it's a journey that we take together, not just something that we go, no, you're not ready, and don't give a reason. It's a very methodical, talked through thing. And at every stage of the ride, we'll stop and we'll have a really good talk about what I've seen. He'll explain what he's done, why he did certain things, and we'll go over that and we'll get things as right as we can, because we always know that riding the same road every single day can be different every single time you're on it, like this one, like that white car coming out. Now Chris was very good at seeing that was going to happen, so that's really good. So positioning. We talk about in roadcraft positioning all the time. And that's one of Chris just rolled back slightly there because one of the things that we talked about was him getting too close to stationary vehicles. So anyway, so positioning. Positioning we talk about all the time in roadcraft because positioning is one of the best things for you to be able to assess all the information that's coming into your head and therefore put the rest of IPSCA, or PSCA without the I, into motion with every hazard that you see. But the positioning that I'm going to talk about today is about the observers or the tutors like myself positioning. So there will be some times where I will be over here looking at the associate, and there'll be some times that I'm out near the road a little bit closer, and that's all to aid me to have a look and see when his foot is changing. When his foot is changing, just indicating to him to go straight ahead because we don't need to indicate on this one. Yeah, so the positioning is all about where the tutor's going to be, because one of the biggest things about being followed by a tutor not only is in the back of your head as an associate that you're being assessed or that your ride is being looked at and everything you do on your ride is being looked at, but also putting up with the fact that you've got a bike that 1 minute you can see it in one mirror and 1 minute you can see it in another mirror. And that's because I want to see when Chris is changing gear, what he's doing with his hands. Is he pulling the clutch in? So are we sat at a traffic light for 5 minutes waiting for it with the clutch in, causing a bit of duress to the bike? Could it be easier? Could we be more sympathetic to the machine? Is he in the right gear? Because very often, quite early on our associates sessions, IPSCA's one of those really strange things to talk about, because we will put IPSCA into our ride whether you know what IPSCA is or not. It's where those different bits of IPSCA get placed on your ride as to how smooth it is and how thinking you are as a bike rider. So taking the information from a hazard and then altering your position with indication and mirror checks and all that sort of stuff, and then altering your speed, then selecting the right gear, and then accelerating or deaccelerating. That's what IPSCA's about. And everybody that rides a bike or a car uses IPSCA in some way, but what we like to do is try and get IPSCA in the right order. Because if you get it in the right order, other things just follow. You do it naturally, it takes its shape, and the ride becomes much smoother, and it really shows in how you ride, but it also shows in how it feels when you ride, when you get it right. So it's really handy for me to move around and see when Chris is looking around, what he's doing, whether his gear changes are happening at the right time, because we like to ride at sort of like the middle third of the rev range, so you've always got the ability to put the accelerator on to get out of trouble, but also to decelerate, and your bike will use the braking sense as well. So it's really important to get that gear right, and a lot of people that come along as associates will start off riding, they'll ride along, really good ride, but they'll be in 6th gear in a 30-40 mile an hour limit before you can blink, and that's really going to not allow your bike to be controlled in the best way, and that's what we're all about, bike control and safety. So we very often have to work on the gears, so I will move around in different places around the associate so I can see what they're doing, and how we might be able to improve things and get things working a little bit better for them, and how we can smooth some things out. Now it's one of those things that nobody likes being criticised about what they're doing, because we're all the best drivers and riders in the world, aren't we? In the back of our heads, somebody saying, well, you're not quite doing this right, sometimes rubs people up the wrong way, and there's a real knack to explaining that it's not about you doing it wrong, but it's about you not getting the system in the right place, and when you do, you'll see how you getting the system in the wrong place and in the wrong way really comes into its own when you get it right, and how you start thinking, and your speed starts improving on corners and, you know, on roads like that, and you're able to control the bike with a lot more forethought than before. Now we will get a lot closer to an associate on a junction, so if we're going on a right hand junction, I'll come right up, not blocking his view, but I'll come on his left hand side, about halfway up his bike, so I can try and get as good a view as he can get, so when he or she decides to pull away, one would hope that the tutor can get out at the same time, because the one thing that we don't want is an associate to get on the bike, ride and then lose us, because we can't give them our best service and observe and talk through the ride with them because we haven't seen it. So it's all about relaxation, being in the right headspace, and then going out and observing and going out and riding. Now, things that I'll be looking for, certainly with Chris today, is road positioning. Now this is a new bike to him, so he's got a new bike halfway through the course, which is great, and I think this bike is really serving him a lot better, to be honest, because he seems a lot more comfortable on it. Not that he wasn't uncomfortable on the other bike, but he seems a lot more comfortable, and it's a sit up and beg type bike, so I can see when his head's moving and he's doing his checks and things like that a little bit more often, which is brilliant. His slow moving is much better on this bike, and he seems to be really enjoying it as well, which is lovely to see. So what I'm looking at today is honing his IPSCA and making sure he's getting his IPSCA into the right place, and then later on this afternoon we'll be looking at a little bit faster roads, because we're at that stage where we're going around corners looking at positioning. And with Chris, he won't mind me saying, but he doesn't like town riding, and the reason he doesn't like town riding is because, and we were talking the other day, that he's given himself like a bit of a barrier really, because town riding to him is an annoyance. It's very intricate, the stuff all the time getting in the way, there's hazards everywhere. So we talked it through, and I said to him, that mental barrier that you've put in place, I think we can countermand that. So going through a town I use as a bit of a game. How can I improve my road positioning? How far I'm looking, where I'm looking, what hazards I'm perceiving? Am I touching the floor at every junction where I don't need to? Does that mean that I'm getting the system in the wrong place? Can I do something about getting the system in the right place and therefore smooth my ride and make it a bit of a game, make it a bit of fun? So every time I go through, say, Truro or a town, I'll think, right, I'm not going to touch the floor if I can help it today, and I'm going to put IPSCA into place, and I'm going to do all these bits and bobs around advanced riding with my extending my view, looking for hazards, so that I don't have to put my foot down so much. And by doing that, I too turned that mental barrier of I don't like riding through towns because they're so intricate, there's people everywhere, there's ninjas in cars trying to kill you all the time, trying to pop out, which is really annoying, to actually this is really quite nice, because one of the biggest things about riding to the system of IPSCA and roadcraft is that you give yourself time and space to make decisions. So I'm looking here up at the roundabout. The information I've got is I want to go straight across, so there's only one exit, so I'm going to indicate. There's a lady stood there waiting to cross the road. I've checked, she's nowhere near me, so I haven't got to change my position, and I'm away from the roundabout without having to stop. So up here we're then coming to another roundabout, and we're going to go straight across that roundabout as well. So it's only one junction, so I'm going to indicate left. And I always indicate, you'll find that the tutor will always indicate before the junction, because sometimes the associates aren't from the same area, and we need to make sure that they're going in the right way, although it's not a navigation exercise. But it helps people settle when they know that somebody behind them is going to tell them where they're going. So we tell them to keep an eye on our indicators if they don't know where we're coming. So a bit of information here, Mini there, poking its way out. So I'm just moving to the inside of the road so it can see me. Very often car drivers pick up on the movement like we do as humans, rather than me staying in one position. I might get confused by something else that she's seen. So if I'm moving in the road, they think, oh, there's something moving there, and that split second could mean that they don't pull out in front of you. So it's all about the information that you get, and the information and the hazards and stuff that you're assessing all the time through IPSCA, and that Chris seems to be doing very, very well today, is that this correlates onto roads with a faster speed limit. So down here I can see that we've got a right hand bend, so I'm going to position 1 in the road, which I'm hoping Chris will do. Yeah, so IPSCA's slightly late there, so now I'm in the right gear, right speed, right round the corner. The bike is really stable, but I can see what's happening around the corners. So we're coming into a 40, so a quick mirror check, and I know the road is evening out here, so I'm back out into position 2.5 to position 3, so that I can then see what's happening round that corner. And I can see by that house there's a car just going up, so the road goes round to the left and then goes round to the right again. So these are the things that you can see by using IPSCA and putting yourself in the right place. Bear in mind we're only doing 40 miles an hour because that's what the speed limit is. I'm giving myself time and space to see what's happening. So I've moved to position 1 now because it gives me a better view around the corner. So the corner is now going to the left, so I'm back out to position 3 after a mirror check, and I know from local knowledge that it goes into a 60 here, so I'm now in the right position to do my shoulder checks and my mirror checks and come up to speed, and staying out in position 3 I can now see right around that whole corner. So back to position 1, which Chris is doing, and I can see around the corner. I haven't changed my acceleration. I'm now coming back out to position 3, so now I've got the best possible view up that road. I'm doing 53 in a 60. Chris is kind of doing that because you can't go too fast because there's a van in front. So it's all about putting those IPSCAs, everything about IPSCA, information, position, speed, gear, accelerate, all of your mirror checks, all of that sort of stuff into place so that you become a smoother rider. So quick mirror check, we're slowing down, and on the money, we change into the right gear at that imaginary line of 30. Now I'm equalising the dangers here because there's a car there and a van there, so I'm in the middle of the road so that they can both see me, and I'm equal distance away from both hazards. And the one thing that we can always do when we're doing that sort of thing and equalising distance is slow ourselves down. It's all about the ride and keeping yourself safe, giving yourself time and space to make your decisions. So What I've noticed while I've been talking with Chris is he's much more comfortable on this bike. It's enabling him to do his mirror checks a lot better without the bike going all over the place, because one thing that we had, he was on a sports bike, so he was getting very, his position was changing quite a bit when he looked and got his mirror checks, because his arms weren't relaxed enough, I don't think, which is changing. His gear changes have been marginally, predominantly in the right place when he's been riding, because everything seems to have flowed. There's been a couple of things, so getting too close to that car. So here we've got dangers of people parking on my left hand side, a van wanting to pull out, bus, there could be people there, so we've slowed down, you know. And Chris is very good at moving position in this sort of road at this sort of speed. It may look a bit funny from behind for a lot of people, but the reason you do it is so that people can see you moving about. They can see that there's something moving, so I'll pay a bit more attention, and that bit more attention. So little things here, so there was no need to put your brakes on. But he obviously felt that he needed to. We could check all the wing mirrors here to make sure that there's nobody in the car, there's no lights on with brake lights or anything, so nobody's in the vehicles. And then we get to a 60-mile-an-hour limit, and there we are, a check on the mirrors and over the shoulder to make sure before we go. And we always do that coming into a faster speed limit, because what we don't want to do is accelerate up to 60, which is the national speed limit here in the UK, and then realise that somebody is trying to overtake us on the right hand side and therefore put us into danger. It's all about having that safety, 360-degree safety bubble around you. So all in all, I think Chris is starting to get there. Hopefully that's given you a little bit of an idea of what it's like when you're on your observed rides and out with your tutor with RoSPA, that it's all relaxed. There's no point us pressurising people because you don't get the best out of people. We do it as you know, as volunteers, and I love being on my bike, and if I can help one more person improve their ride or change their riding style so that they become more confident, safer in themselves, but ultimately start to enjoy their ride a little bit more and not worry about the things that they perhaps were worrying about before, then I've done my job, and I love it. I love coming out on the bike. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just go down by this sign. There's a little Starbucks in behind, and we'll have a chat with Chris about his ride, see how he thought about what he thought about his ride. We'll have chats about a little bit on his ride to see how he thought, what I thought about it. We'll talk through some of the things that I've picked up, and then we will, for the second half of the session, we will go out on a bit of faster road and see if we can put that positioning into place a little bit better, and correlate the positioning on a slower road into a bigger road. So I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope it's given you some sort of insight as to what it's like to have someone behind you. And don't get me wrong, you know, I get home after a 2.5 hour session with an associate absolutely shattered, because I'm not only looking at my ride and making sure that I can be the best that I can be on the bike, I'm also looking at how my associate rides and trying to remember bits that I need to pick up on, bits that we need to talk about, why we need to talk about it, then applying it to the system, you know, and bringing it up, and of course if there's any safety issues and things, talking about them first to get them out of the way. But if you like the video, give it a thumbs up, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next video.